Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre, and today I am taking you through a little tour of what is in my watercolor palette. So let's jump right in and start. Okay, so today is going to be a quick video, and a question that I get asked a lot is, what's in your palette? Can you do a little palette swatching tour? I want the same colors as you. Can you do that? So today, that is what I am doing. But one thing I will say, and I do say often to people who ask me this, you do not need all these colors. I have all these colors because I was gifted a lot of them. And there are a bunch that I don't even use or touch. So I will go through that as I'm swatching them. But please, if you're a beginner, don't look at my palette and think you need to have all these colors, because you don't. So I will give you the lowdown of what's in here, what I use the most and what I don't use, what may be worth it or not. All right, so let's get into it. In my palette, I have Winsor Newton Professional Watercolors. I started out with COTMAN watercolors 5 years ago, and then I was gifted a bunch of professional ones from a viewer who wasn't using them anymore. She switched to a different brand, and I knew that Winsor Newton was a great brand. I was already using the Winsor Newton COTMAN, so, you know, upgrading to professional was great and not something I would have done on my own because it is pricey. So with that said, I got this palette and I filled it up. I did buy some colors of my own, and we're just gonna go through and swatch them for you in order. So I'm gonna start down here with this lemon yellow that I have. It's a little on the green side because I usually only use it when I am, it's not green. It's not supposed to be green. It's supposed to be lemon yellow, but it's dirty because I never use lemon yellow unless I'm mixing like a limeish kind of green. So this swatch is not really accurate because it is so contaminated, but I don't mind because that's how I use it. So really, I don't use it. It's not necessary. But that is one that I don't use or find that I need in my palette. Another color I use a lot is this cadmium yellow. This is my go-to yellow for almost everything. This I find is a staple in my palette, and I would not trade it. Next is yellow ochre, which is another favorite of mine. I tend to use this a lot. I love the color. It's just beautiful. So that is one of my favorites that I use a lot. Next, I have Cadmium Orange, which I honestly don't use a lot. When I finish this, I probably won't re-add it in my palette. This has been there forever. Very uncommon that I use that color a lot, except maybe sometimes in the fall. But really, you could just mix cadmium yellow with red and you'd get the same color. So it's not necessary to have in your palette. Next, I have Cadmium Red. And Cadmium Red is tricky. As you can see, it's quite orangey looking. And I also barely use this, maybe only in the fall, which again, you can make with cadmium yellow. And I think this is Winsor Red if you just have a bit more red into it. It's not necessary to have in your palette. But yeah, it's more on the orangey side, so I really don't use it all that often. My go-to red is Winsor Red here, which I really, really like. It's like this true red. Nice, bright, kind of like a cherry red. So that's a staple in here that I would keep. Then I have, I think this is Alizarin Crimson, which is a nice deep red. I don't use it all that often, but I do use it and I would keep it in my palette. It's a really nice dark deep red. Next, I have Opera Rose, which, to be honest, I do not use all that often. You'll rarely see me use it. It's very neon, a little too bright for my liking. I just don't find myself using it. I am more of like a muted tone kind of person, and this is not my favorite pink. I would not buy it again, but that's my preference. If you find yourself using brighter colors, this might be perfect for you. My go-to pink is Permanent Rose. It always has been. It always will be. This is another staple in my palette that I will always have and keep and refill. Then I have, I think this one is Quinacridone Magenta. This is actually a really nice magenta, but I find myself not using it that often. barely ever, but it is a nice magenta. There's quinacridone magenta, and then there's just, I think, regular magenta, which I think is this one. I hope I'm right. Which is more on the purpley side, which I don't ever use. So those two usually go untouched a lot of the time. Another one that I love that I use all the time is Dioxazine Purple. Or it might be Dioxazine Violet in the professional kit. I don't know. But I use this all the time to mix with my green to make darker greens, and I love it. Here I have Mauve, but this Mauve is actually a COTMAN brand color, so Winsor Newton COTMAN. This is a student grade. I have the professional Mauve, but it's actually very granulated, and I do not like granulation at all, so it was really bugging me. So I just ended up putting my Mauve from my COTMAN set in there. And even so, I find I don't use it all that often. You could just mix a bit of your Dioxazine Purple with a bit of pink and get the same color. So it's not necessary to have in your palette. Okay, my greens. I do love my greens, and I feel like they are necessary to have. So I love Hooker's Green Dark. This is one of my go-tos, especially for mixing. And then Sap Green is also my other go-to green, which I wouldn't get rid of. And then this one is called Perline Green, which I also love. You don't have to have it. You can mix a nice dark green with Hooker's Green Dark and Dioxazine Purple. But when I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to mix, I love, love, love this green. It's like a winter green. It's so pretty. Then we have this color, which I never, ever, ever use, which is Green Gold. It's a little too yellowy for me. People have mentioned that it's really nice to mix with, but I just don't find myself using it all that often. So I don't like ever touch it, but that's in there because it was given to me. Then we're moving on to the blues. Here I have French Ultramarine, which is kind of a granulated color, and I don't really love it. I find this ultramarine is very hard to mix with because it is granulating. When you mix it with other colors, it tends to separate. So I don't find myself using it all that often. It's not really my go-to blue. I will use it sometimes and I just have it in there, but I don't think it's too necessary. I think maybe Prussian blue might be a better option. I don't have it, but I don't find it all that necessary to have either. My go-to blue, I don't know why, I just love it, is turquoise. Phthalo Turquoise, which is like a cooler, is it cooler or warmer? I think it's cooler. It's like more of a greeny blue, but I love it. Turquoise. And then I have this color, which I think is, turquoise light, cobalt turquoise light. I actually have to look that up and I'll add it after. But it's a very beautiful color. I also don't find myself using it that often, but that's because of what I usually paint. So if you find yourself using like brighter colors like this and like Opera Rose, those would be really nice in your palette. But again, your palette should reflect you and, you know, your style. So if you find yourself using colors like this, then definitely go for it. This is Cobalt Blue, which I actually really, really love. This is one of my other favorite blues. So I find myself using this one quite a bit too. Then we have Indigo, which I also love. It's a must in my palette. Love it. It's nice and dark. Then Payne's Gray, which I also love. It's actually quite similar to Indigo, so you don't need Indigo. You could just add a little bit more blue to your Payne's Gray. But I do love having them both. I don't know why. I just do. Then I have, I believe this is Mars Black or Lamp Black. Either way, it's black. And I do like having a black in my palette. You can mix a black, but I do find it kind of difficult to do and time consuming, so I don't usually mix black. I just have a black. Then I have this Sepia, which is a really nice dark brown. And I find myself using this a bit. I like it. That's one of my go-to browns. Then I have this one, which I don't remember what it's called. I think it was like the last bit in a tube, but I don't like it. It's very opaque. not like brick red. It's something. I don't remember what it is. Raw umber, maybe? I don't know. But I don't particularly love it, and I wouldn't put it back in my palette. It was just left over from a tube. My go-to brown outside of sepia is burnt umber, which is this one. I love this brown. And if you didn't want to buy sepia, you could just mix burnt umber with a bit of black, and then you'd get sepia. And then lastly, we have brown madder, which I actually really love. I don't find myself using it that often. It's like this orangey brown, but it's really nice for like some fall florals and stuff like that. So that is my palette. That is everything that is in there. Like I said, I don't use all of them, and it's not necessary to have all of them. So please don't ever feel like you have to spend a fortune to paint along with me. I just gave you an idea of what I use often, what I don't. But if I were to recommend starting out with any colors, it would be maybe a cool and a warm version of each of the primary colors. So I would go cadmium yellow and then yellow ochre, just because I love yellow ochre. You don't need the lemon yellow. This is a really bad example of lemon yellow. It's just mixed with green. It doesn't look like that, but I don't find myself using it. So I would do cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, because I just really like it. Winsor Red, and maybe Alizarin Crimson. They're similar, but yeah, if I had to do two. Or I would do Winsor Red and Permanent Rose. I would actually rather do those two. And then I would do turquoise and maybe Cobalt Blue. But if you wanted something a bit deeper, maybe French Ultramarine or Prussian Blue. So you don't, and then you can mix like a billion colors with those 6 colors. So a cool and a warm version of each of the primaries, and you'd be good to go. But yeah, I definitely add the pink in there, Permanent Rose with a red instead of 2 different reds. So yeah, that is kind of the lowdown of what is in my palette. I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye!